Place of supply of goods. Article 27 outlines the rules to determine the place of supply for goods, which is critical in applying VAT correctly. The place of supply determines which country's VAT law applies to the transaction. The article sets out different rules for supplies made within the UAE, supplies involving installation or assembly, and supplies involving exports or imports. 1. General rule for place of supply within the state. The place of supply of goods is considered to be within the state if the supply physically takes place within the UAE. The supply does not involve export of goods outside the UAE or import of goods into the UAE. 2. Place of supply for installed or assembled goods. When goods are exported from or imported into the UAE and require installation or assembly, the place of supply is determined based on where the assembly installation occurs. Inside the UAE, if the goods are assembled or installed within the UAE. Outside the UAE, if the goods are assembled or installed outside the UAE. 3. Place of supply for goods involving export or import. For supplies that involve either export from or import into the UAE, the place of supply is determined as follows. A. Place of supply is inside the UAE if the supply involves exporting goods to a location outside the implementing states, outside GCC VAT system. The recipient of the goods is located in an implementing state, another GCC VAT country, but the recipient is not registered for VAT in that country, and the total exports from the supplier to that state do not exceed the mandatory registration threshold in that implementing state. The recipient of the goods in the UAE does not have a tax registration number, and the total imports from the same supplier in an implementing state into the UAE exceed the mandatory registration threshold in the UAE. The ownership of goods is transferred within the UAE, under the special cases covered in Article 26 Clause 1. B. Place of supply is outside the UAE if the supply involves export to a customer registered for VAT in one of the implementing states. The recipient of goods is located in an implementing state, another GCC VAT country, not registered for VAT there, but the total exports from the supplier to that state exceed the mandatory registration threshold in that implementing state. The recipient of goods in the UAE does not have a tax registration number, and the goods are imported into the UAE from a supplier registered for VAT in an implementing state, but the total value of imported goods from that supplier does not exceed the mandatory registration threshold in the UAE. 4. Special rule for temporary exports and re-imports. Goods will not be treated as exported and then re-imported if the goods are supplied within the UAE, and the supply arrangement requires the goods to temporarily exit and then re-enter the UAE, specific cases to be covered in the executive regulation. For more details, contact us.